Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming on. We are celebrating Black Breastfeeding Week this week, starting August 25th. It goes all the way to August 31st. And we usually actually do an in-person event on that Saturday. But because of what's going on, a lot of pregnant women and moms and stuff are being cautious and staying at home. So we still didn't want to go without doing anything. So we're going to present this webinar with some speakers who are experienced in lactation to help us to keep learning about breastfeeding, because every year I learn more about breastfeeding by doing these things. And I breastfed past a year, and I want us to make it more of a normalcy in our community for us to, it's natural, it's something that we're supposed to do. And I do want to say that I did not create this. I know people who know about Black Breastfeeding Week know the origins of it, but when I used to do the events, people thought that I founded it. But this Black Breastfeeding Week was actually founded by three sisters who saw the disparities in breastfeeding. So they thought that it would be great to celebrate this and highlight this very important act. Kimberly, one of the names is Kimberly Seals Ehlers, Kadada Green, Anaya Sangodele Eyoko. So I'm Abena Adu, the craftswoman. I'm a doula trainer. I specialize in childbirth, natural fertility, and waist beads. So, and I'm also an author of the Dark Womb Redemption series. And you can go to my website, craftswoman.com, to find out more information. We are going to have different people, like I said, coming on to speak. After they speak, I would like for you all to save your questions for the end, like in about an hour. So, and I'm going to actually be referring to everybody as their Instagram name. So you can go and follow them. I am on Instagram at Craftswoman. So the first speaker, and everybody's going to talk about something different. The first speaker is at Prettiest Life. So you can go ahead and unmute.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Lejay Rain, and as Abena said, my Instagram is prettiest_life. And currently, I am a former doula. I used to do birth work, but I'm still a lactation counselor. I'm a mom of 3 breastfed children. I'm currently breastfeeding right now. And I wanted to talk about exclusive breastfeeding. I have definitely had experiences where either with clientele and with myself, where it was just deemed too hard to breastfeed exclusively, meaning that the baby doesn't get any formula or water or anything like that up until they, of course, are of age to begin to start foods. And so one of the main things with exclusive breastfeeding is support. And if you can't find support within your home, you may have to hire support. And what I mean by support is whether it's someone helping you so that you can get some rest and recharge your body, someone bringing you water, someone checking on you, making sure you're staying hydrated, that you're eating enough, because you do have to eat more food when you are breastfeeding. You need an extra 500 calories a week, because your body is going to burn that off regardless. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad if you aren't taking care of yourself, because your body is going to make food for the baby regardless. And you don't want it to pull from your body and your nutrients, because then you will start to become depleted. So that's a very important thing. Another thing with the breastfeeding that a lot of people don't think about, I actually have a background in public health. That's what I planned on doing when I was in college, and kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed about careers and things of that nature before I really jumped all the way into women's health. But one of the things with public health that I learned is in the instance of emergency preparedness, meaning that if there is a disaster, whether it be a flood, tornado, anything like that, it's a lot of babies, unfortunately, do not survive those instances because their mothers or their fathers, families cannot get to formula. They can't find another way to feed the baby because there is no milk. So your milk is very, very precious. If you do stop lactating, you can always restart. I have some moms that have given up in the first couple of days and they like, F it. And they came back about 3 weeks later, like, man, I really want to do it. You can re-lactate. That is not, it does take time. It does take work. And breastfeeding is work. So don't ever feel like, it's not too hard. You just need extra rest, especially in the beginning, especially the first 6 months, because the baby is going to need so much of your time. The baby is getting so much from your milk. This is why there is no comparison to formula and why I'm such a big proponent of exclusive breastfeeding myself, because the baby can't get what you're giving them from your body. Not only are they getting nutrients that inherently work with their body, because your body responds to their body through their saliva, actually communicates with your breast and communicates with your brain, and it knows what kind of milk to make. So if your baby were to get sick, they were exposed to something, the breast milk would immediately react to give your baby what he or she needs. And so in that instance, you're just not going to get that from formula, period. It's just impossible for it to do so, as well as the fact that you are passing down your ancestral DNA. It's very powerful for your child's psychological wellness as well. Babies who are left to cry, babies who drink formula do tend to sleep longer, and so they don't get the same amount of time being held by mom. And that does affect the child's psychology, whether they're left to cry, whether they're not held enough. That does matter. That does affect their psychological wellness later on. They could have feelings of abandonment and all kinds of other things. But on the flip side, if they do have what nature intended and have the adequate time on the breast with mom, they feel more secure. They feel more rooted. They don't feel, like I said, abandonment issues and things of that nature, because they are getting that nurturing from you. So breastfeeding, there is the stereotypical medical benefits of it, but there are also benefits that are not necessarily promoted in the Western medicine hemisphere. There are so many things that your child is getting. They're still listening to your heartbeat. It helps them once they've been birthed, because they're still close to that same environment that they were in. They were able to hear your heartbeat inside, and they could also hear it outside. So, like I said, I'm a huge proponent of
You froze. Oh, she dropped off. Oh, no, she's.
if, outside of that realm, get up in the middle of the night, just roll over. That's kind of my thing that I normally do, but it does not only does it save you, the time of having to prepare a bottle, it also saves you money. Everybody knows formula is not free. Even if you go through the WIC program, there is the labor of getting up and going
You
to that WIC
lagging.
appointment. So
You're
there is
lagging.
nothing that compares to, uh-oh. Okay, let me try to see what's going on with my internet real quick. Should be working fine. Let's see here. Give me a second. Okay, am I? Okay, is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yes, so that is definitely my spiel about exclusive breastfeeding. I was trained as a lactation counselor through the University of California, San Diego, and it's actually, they have an on-site and an online program. So if you all ever feel interested in helping other women breastfeed, please don't hesitate to take that program. The teacher is really good. She's a former nurse, and even she sees some of the things that aren't being taught in the medical arena about breastfeeding. Another thing about exclusive breastfeeding is if you do have an instance in which you're having problems with breastfeeding, please do not feel bad about reaching out to a lactation consultant or a lactation counselor. OBGYNs are not, and pediatricians are not really trained on human lactation the way you would think that they are. So always reach out to a professional, someone who is trained in breastfeeding, someone. Doulas usually have a lot of, or birth workers tend to have a lot of information on the subject, because a lot of us have been taught the importance of getting your milk in. And when you first have your baby, there is a big disparity in women thinking that you're just going to have like all this milk coming in. You initially have colostrum, and that is, something that a lot of women don't know until they think their baby isn't getting food, because it's a sticky substance that comes out of the breast that doesn't look like milk. And so it's very important to know your baby. If your baby's making diapers, meaning they're pooping, they're peeing, you are feeding your baby. And that's super important. It's like a super nutrient. It's packed with vitamins that your baby needs. It coats your baby's intestine. This helps you from having so many problems down the line, such as ear infections, digestive problems, allergies, which are things that, no parent essentially wants to deal with, because it takes a lot of out of the wellness of your child, which of course will take time, you taking them to the doctor and things like that. So these are things that aren't really discussed, especially from our healthcare providers. And so this is really important for Black Breastfeeding Week, because there is a disparity in how our health professionals don't fully educate us the way we need. So make sure you reach out to a doula, a lactation counselor, if you don't have someone that understands the importance of Black breastfeeding, specifically, completely about only Black women.
Okay, perfect. One more minute. We are going to go to the next speaker is not here, so we're gonna go to Radia Essentials. She may have gotten the time mixed up because she's on Eastern time, so I don't know.
Okay, great. And it's actually Radia Spa Essentials. I'm here in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, world traveler, having lived in 4 countries. And I own and operate Radia Spa Essentials. Prior to spa wellness, I was a natural childbirth educator and doula. And I do still do some doula work, postpartum, for the most part, due to my current lifestyle. Excuse me. But I wanted to share with you all my experience as it relates to breastfeeding. Firstly, as a child whose mother opted not to breastfeed me. Her thing was, she said, I didn't want to start something I wouldn't finish. Meaning she knew she wanted to work. She didn't have to, but her mindset was she wanted her own money. And so she opted to work. So the thing about that is now, being older and having had, I gave birth to 4 children and breastfed all of them. And for the Muslim woman who has the understanding, we breastfeed for 2 years. So you can imagine, me not having that foundation of having been breastfed, that as far as I'm concerned, I was malnourished, because not only that, I grew up having a sweet tooth, so I always ate candy. We had always had sodas or Kool-Aid. Only time we had juice was on a Saturday if we opted for that, and that was only because that was something that my father requested. It would either be grape juice excuse me, or orange juice. He also drank tomato juice, but I didn't like that. So it was a treat for us to have grape juice or orange juice. And so obviously he rotated that. And then and water, that was like, the only time we got water was if we ate out, which we did often. But growing up in the environment that I grew up, you know, we always were outdoors, had to be in when the street light came on, kind of thing. So my mom always got sick and tired of us running in and out of the house. So we had the hose. So that's how we got our water. So those were the only times that, you know, I had water until I got older, unfortunately. And fast forward, you know, and again, now me being older, I'm having issues that, excuse me, you would think our parents or grandparents would have as it relates to my bones and my teeth. And, you know, so much so that, you know, my teeth have been rotting, you know, having, you know, again, not having had that foundation. And then I was prone to going to the dentist often because I had cavities. And, you know, initially they used the porcelain, but because oh, and I also ate, when I had sodas or anything at restaurants, I constantly ate ice. So all of these things are contributing to the breakdown of the porcelain. So the dentist managed to talk my mother into giving me silver fillings. And so those are, you know, at least with braces, you eventually get those off. But with the silver fillings, they stay in your mouth and they're still in my mouth. And between, you know, everything that's, you know, going on, that had been going on, and then the added silver fillings, and then, you know, having breastfed, you know, because the baby's going to get what it needs first. So, you know, that added to the deterioration of my body, unfortunately. And so I'm sharing all of that with you all because, you know, I want you all to really think about the long-term effects of not choosing not to breastfeed. You know, I can speak, I'm very passionate about that. You know, there's some women who, you know, they would rather do the bottles and things of this nature. And you know, I every time I come across a conversation like that, I have to step up and say, don't do that to your baby. You know, and now, you know, with us having this COVID thing going on, you know, the immunities that are in colostrum and breast milk, you know, you're speaking for your child, and, you know, not giving it the opportunity to develop a strong immune system to fight, you know, such things. So yeah, so I wanted to make sure I shared all of that with you all. And then you know, having breastfed, you know, I found that increased the bonding, you know, as I, you know, would bond and breastfeed with my children. And, you know, it was just so convenient. You know, my children, you know, they all became children of the bed in terms of the family bed. You know, they never slept in their own bed until they stopped breastfeeding, and it wasn't always right away. And for me, another advantage, you know, and I know this isn't the case for every woman, but it was a form of birth control for me. So that's another advantage. And then, you know, another advantage, if you want to look at advantages, it helps with you losing your weight. You know, if you're doing it right, it will also help you to lose your weight. You know, the knowledge that I had gotten as a childbirth educator and doula, we have a saying, 9 months in, 9 months out. You know, but nowadays, you know, everybody wants to be an Instagram model and these things. And so they're not giving their body the chance to, on its own, within that 9 months after the child has been born, to naturally let the weight fall off, you know. So They're opting for, plastic surgeries and, all of these kinds of things. And it's unnecessary, So yeah, I just wanted to share those things with you all in the hopes that, it would encourage you all to start the breastfeeding journey.
Okay. Thank you all. And Prettiest Life, I think she left. So it's Radia. I've been saying it wrong all this time. Okay, so we can hear from Melanoid Breast Milk. I didn't see you when you were coming in earlier, but you can, yes,
Greetings.
greetings.
How are you?
We're good.
Yeah, so just I just came in and just let me know the topic or the specific topic I'm responding to.
It was whatever, which one you chose. You just have, we're just doing 10 minutes each. And then we're gonna do,
Gotcha. I think it was weaning. I think I chose weaning.
yes.
Okay, so thank you for having me, sis. I really appreciate being here. For those who don't know me, my name is Ariane Randolph. I do go by Oyede, and I'm the author of Melanoid Breast Milk and CEO of the brand Melanoid Breast Milk LLC. And basically, I'm just going to share some information with the family on weaning and my experiences that I've had with the weaning. I have 5 children, and I breastfed all 5 of them. Um, and all of them, for the most part, at first, we went like, we would go at least a year because I just was like, oh, that's what you do. And the more I began on the breastfeeding educational journey, the longer I went. And so by the time that I started writing Melanoid Breast Milk, I was already working at my local WIC office. And really what kind of drove me to do that writing was that the lack of diversity in the educational materials that they give to peer counselors or people who want to go down the path of some type of lactation specialty or something like that. And I was just like, okay, where are we in all of this? So fast forward um, to doing research for writing that book, and then continuing to have, I think I had 2 more children, one in the writing research part, and then the last one, my 5th, came as I was kind of wrapping up or what have you. So she's the one that I actually went the longest with. And so we got a chance to really go deep into toddlerhood with our breastfeeding journey. And I just weaned her this year at 4.5 years old. So really, it was really an amazing experience. We around the time that she was 3. Well, let me back up. With the 4th one, we went to 3, and so again, that was another chance to get well into that, past 2 years old. She was 3 years old, and when I weaned her, it was pretty easy. Like as I was pregnant with the 5th one, and I was telling her like, listen, you're getting older. It's going to be time to get off of mommy. Mommy's ready, and mommy want to be able to really, be with the new baby. And while I recognized that I could have done tandem nursing, if she wasn't going to push it, I wanted to be able to get a little break before the new baby came. So she was real easy. She was just like, oh, okay, sure, no problem. And just that was it. But with the 5th one, it was like, wait, what? No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't hear you. And it really just sharpened her negotiation skills because she was not trying to have it. So we had a tragedy happen in our family in 2020. And during that time, she was 3 years old. So at this time, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go ahead and wean her. That was the plan. So the weekend that the tragedy happened, we were away. That was our first time being separated. So I'm like, okay, I'll use this time to go ahead and spearhead our weaning process. And really, because that tragedy just kind of compelled us in a deep state of grief and healing, that's not what happened. We really I would say breastfeeding really was used as a way to heal us. I really started to see no point to just kind of yank her off the breast at that time. It made no sense. And I was like, okay, just sit down, breastfeed her. This is not happening right now, and don't even try to rush it. So that took us into her being 4 years old. And as you know, she was getting a little older, which really she was fine. But she was just getting bigger, and there was another pregnancy as well. So I said, okay, let's see how this works. Let's see, if we could kind of try this again. And it was very interesting because again, she was just not a willing participant. And it really took a good some tough love, like all the family had to kind of step in to help, with distractions, to help replace, because it really wasn't about just a straight nourishment. Obviously she's 4, so we're a plant-based household. So she's eating, she's full eating meals, but that comfort time, that come to mommy bosom time was really like her own time to kind of stake her claim with me, especially with the other kids. I mean, she would like let them know in a minute, like, no, don't sit by mommy right now. I'm here. But really what ends up helping us was just continuing to talk about it, continuing to replace the breastfeeding times with something else. And it didn't necessarily have to be like a food kind of item, some kind of special time, whether it was like some of the older kids would go read with her. If she got to like earn some electronic time, that would help her. My husband, he would step in sometimes. So these things really helped. And then I noticed about a week and a half into our process, our active weaning process, she says to me, "Oh, mommy, I'm doing so good. I think I need a treat because I didn't ask for Nini all day." And so I was like, "Really?" So I acknowledged her accomplishment for the day, but I just thought it was so interesting how she knew like this is this goal that we was working on. And so at that point she was like, "Okay, listen, I'm going down this road with you. You need to reward me." So she was really working her skills. But really one of the things that, like I said, I didn't know how breastfeeding would be such a savior on our journey of healing as it related to grief. Like nobody could even have told me that. And so that was really powerful. And even we had some heavy moments over that like last year and a half of that process. And I'll just share in transparency. And just because who knows, it may touch somebody else. Not only did one of our children, Sunset, one of the older ones, we had that pregnancy did not go to full term. And so I think it was a breastfeeding again that helped me heal from that, because we elected to have a natural birth, which people don't think that if you have what society calls a miscarriage, that it's still a birth. You still have a postpartum body and things still kind of get shifted around. They have to go back. And so really, I noticed with the breastfeeding that, my body, my uterus started contracting, everything kind of started going back pretty quickly, in that natural process that we decided to have, and not go into the hospitals for that, because of the climate that we're in. I said, okay, well, with the year that I had already had, if this is what we're experiencing, and I get to experience this safely in a spiritual way in the comfort of my home and still be breastfeeding this toddler, then clearly there must be a reason to all of this. So that was another kind of hidden gem in my breastfeeding experience that I had never had before. But I really would say I'm thankful for being able to go as long as I did with her, because it really taught me a lot. And it really showed me that breastfeeding is so much more, it's so much more expansive, and it does so much more things for your body as well as your baby's body. So I don't know if you have any, I don't know, questions or reflections or comments on that, but I'll kind of just stop right there to see if you have anything that you may want to ask or share.
We just wanted the speakers to go through, and then after the last speaker, we're gonna do the Q&A. Because when you
Gotcha.
start, you know, when you start doing questions, we get off topic and stuff, and I just want to be fair to give everybody the time that we agreed on. So
Gotcha.
it's just
So
like
with
1
that,
minute.
I don't know if that was my time or not.
Just 1 more minute. I mean,
Oh, okay. Well, I guess since I have one more minute in that closing minute, I would say that in this hood that we call motherhood, breastfeeding has definitely been a connection to my ancestors. It has definitely been and that's ancestors known and unknown. It has definitely been a much saving grace for me in a way that I had no idea. And just like each birth is different, each breastfeeding experience has been different, and I'm ever forever so changed for that, and I'm so grateful for that, even the opportunity to get to share with those that are here. So, and I'll close with that. Thank you.
okay, thank you so much for coming on. Okay, now last speaker is Original Womb.
Hello, thank you all so much for having me. My name is Jessica Berry and I'm with Original Womb. I actually want to share my screen because I put together a little presentation for you all.
Okay. Hold on.
I probably should have mentioned that before.
Okay, try it now.
Okay. Okay, are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, just okay. I basically put together 6 tips for breastfeeding that I recommend. Now, these are tips that I live by. Some of the tips are tips that I wish I knew, and all of the tips are definitely things that I recommend. And I am covering the NICU and extended breastfeeding tips. I am Jessica Berry, like I mentioned before. I'm a holistic educator and creative. Um, I teach on how to live healthy by using strategy, planning, and incorporating practical holistic health tips and solutions to your daily life. And my healing modality addresses the root cause to common health and life issues to manifest a harmonious way of living. So I've breastfed 2 children, and it was for a total of about 5 years, and that's amongst 2 children. So one child I breastfed until they were, I think, 3 months, 2 years and 3 months. And then another child I breastfed a little shy of 3 years. So I have a bit of experience with the extended breastfeeding, and I really look at extended breastfeeding as anything from like 1 to 2 years or more. The first tip that I recommend would be to drink enough liquids. And research says to have about 128 ounces or 16 cups of liquids per day. So what I like to do when I was breastfeeding is to drink 1 or 2 beverages after my meal. So I would have like a glass of water, and I would try to have a cup of tea or herbal infusion following my meal. And if I could do it after breakfast and dinner, that would be amazing. But if I could do it also, if I could also drink the tea and the water after lunch, that was even better. And what I also like to do was to front load the liquid intake at the start of the day. So I would try to drink most of my liquids before 12 or 2 p.m. just so I'm not going to the restroom and being up all night trying to use the bathroom. Especially when you're trying to do that along with breastfeeding, because you're already being woken up in the middle of the night to breastfeed sometimes. I also recommend carrying around a big water bottle to manage the liquid intake. And that really helped me because I did not want to be dehydrated during my breastfeeding because it does have an effect on lactation. So to remind myself to make sure that I had proper intake, I love to carry around like a water bottle. And also what I like to do is get some essential oils or squeeze some lemon in the water so that when I got tired of just drinking plain water, I can have a little bit of flavor to it. So that really helped me get my liquid intake in. Excuse me. Can you guys see this all the way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I also recommend to do low impact exercise, and that exercise is about 30 minutes per day. So I prefer walking and yoga. So if you walk about 30 minutes per day, it's really great with releasing those happy hormones, you know, which are really a huge confidence booster. And they also help, exercise in general helps with circulation. And so that aids with making sure that that you are able to breastfeed easier. I like to keep the exercising when I'm breastfeeding light and moderate, nothing too strenuous. So I don't want to like add any unnecessary stress to my body. I also recommend breastfeeding or pumping prior to this daily activity because you don't want to work out with like engorged breasts and stuff because it can be really uncomfortable. The next step I have is to tune out the negative input of loved ones. And I'm sure that anyone, especially in the Black community, who has tried to breastfeed for an extended period of times, you're gonna receive a lot of comments and advice where people mean well, but what they're really doing is kind of going against your decision to breastfeed. And the point of the matter is your decision to breastfeed is right for you. Breastfeeding is proven to have a positive impact on your child's immune system, and getting support from like-minded women, like the women on this call, and people who are active with Black Breastfeeding Week is a great way to get support for you so that you can keep going in breastfeeding. Some tips that I have for women who are breastfeeding babies who are in the NICU unit is to plan to pump at the hospital if that's an option at your hospital. And this improves the chances of having breast milk ready when your baby needs it. And this reduces the anxiety of your baby being fed by other means. So like if they don't have your breast milk in stock, they will use like a donor's breast milk, and they might use formula. So to prevent this from happening, just breastfeed at the hospital, give the milk over to the nurses, and they'll take care of it. And I recommend this because when my daughter was in NICU, she had a placental abruption during her birth. And so she stayed in NICU for 11 days. I didn't really know about the procedures of having a baby in NICU because I didn't have any friends or family members who dealt with that. So when I dealt with that, that was my first time being in a situation like that. So I remember like planning to visit my child, and I pumped all this milk and I was bringing it to the hospital, and I was just like so frantic because I knew that her breastfeeding time was like at noon or something like that, and I think I was running a couple of minutes late, and I was like, oh no, like am I going to make it on time? Like I was so frantic, and then I realized after that if I just pumped at the hospital and gave the milk over to the doctors or to the nurses, that it would just ease everything and make everything just much easier to navigate, so I wouldn't have that anxiety. And also for people who are dealing with children in NICU, I recommend that mothers meditate and forgive yourself, because managing anxiety is important when you just have a baby. It's important, period, but definitely when you just have the baby, because your body is going through a lot of changes and things like that. And it's important that mothers know that what happened to your baby is not your fault, and you are a good mother, because you are doing everything that you know to do to basically make sure that your baby is getting healthy, getting the breast milk that they need. And that is your job at this point. And you are, making those steps in the right direction. My final tip is to journal your frustrations. That's what I did, because a lot of pent up emotions can ruin your day. And writing is a really good release to help process the emotions and feelings that you're experiencing. And journaling can also help you to plan and prepare to visit your baby the night before your visit to the NICU. So you can like make lists on what you need to bring, things that you want to say to your baby during the visit, and then just writing down all the frustrations, instead of having those type of frustrations like leak over to other relationships, like with your family and friends and things like that. So those are pretty much my tips, and thank you all so much for having me. I don't know if I have more time, but I just wanted to I'm done here.
Okay, we can, now we can just, have a discussion. Or if anyone have any questions, if you want to type them in the chat, that's fine. And we could read them off, or if you just want to unmute. I do have some questions. I didn't write them down, but I had a few questions. But anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes. Hello, I'm Brianna Glenn from New Earth Birth 777. My question is about the lactating. So, like, once you stop breastfeeding and you want to start it back again, what is that process of trying to get your milk back?
Well, I'm gonna go first. I did want to talk about that generally anyway. The last,
Okay.
I think the first event that I did with Black Breastfeeding Week, when I learned I had weaned my child at 2. My goal was to go to 2. I had met an elder in the community who said that he believed that if you don't go to at least 3, something's gonna be wrong with your baby or whatever. But I mean, just hearing that, I know it's people have their own opinion, but hearing that and just learning so much from breastfeeding, I kind of like missed it. And I was like, okay, we're gonna start back. So I just started back. I didn't have to pump for anything. It wasn't, I didn't think I had enough supply to even pump. I'm not a big pumper. I'm not even a big fan of it. I know that you have to do what you have to do if you have to go to work. But I only pumped if I had to be separated, but I didn't pump a lot. So I didn't have enough to even pump, or it was painful. I didn't want to do that. So I just started back. I didn't take any herbs. I didn't do anything special. So, and I had stopped for months. It was just, it wasn't a full year, but it had been like some months. Does anybody else have any answers to that or comments on re-lactating?
This is Ariane with Melanite Breast Milk. I have some experience in helping moms relactate, but the interesting thing with this situation was that this mom had a pregnancy before, but she never had a birth. And so I did help her make a little bit of milk, but it was like a whole process because she knew she wanted to be adopting a baby. But that process for her started like right when she decided. And so really it was just, she had breast stimulation with the pump. She had did the herbs. It was like a full kind of program, if you will, to kind of help her. Or that for her, it was initiating lactation versus relactating. And then the other family, they had a bit similar to your story. They had been breastfeeding a toddler, or a little one coming up, like from 1 to 2, and they kind of took a little break and was started back. And really, she just kind of reintroduced the baby back to the breast, and that seemed to help her. And then even with my own situation, I was not ever intending to, like, I guess, relactate, so to speak. But like I was saying, in my weaning process, one day my daughter was like, really, she was sleepy, and she came down and she said, she reaches for my breast and all of this. And so I said, there's nothing in there anymore. And she goes, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so just to kind of like, I call myself trying to prove her wrong. And she gets on there, milk started just kind of coming out. And so I'm thinking like, oh man, I don't really, maybe I dried up, but nope, it was, the process, my body was still in that mode. So that's been my experience with either initiating that lactation or relactating, or just, having some time pass and still being able to lactate.
Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
I was going to ask the question to Original Woman. I was wondering, what is her Instagram page? And then also, as far as children that are in the NICU, how can you avoid individuals who might be pushing formula as opposed to breastfeeding if they're in the NICU?
Those are fabulous questions. My Instagram is @originalwomb, just one word. The way that I dealt with people trying to push the bottle feeding, it's just important to go 10 toes down and just say, no, I'm breastfeeding. And if they continue to ask, just continue to give that same response and they'll eventually get the message. That's what I had to do.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I don't know if anyone can answer this question on Instagram. Can I prepare for breastfeeding now while pregnant, or will I have to do everything postpartum? How can I ensure good milk production? One thing that I was told is that you should start stretching your nipple or pulling your nipple to like get it ready for the, I guess, what we call maybe toughening up stage. I don't know how real that is because your breasts are tender when you're pregnant. And I don't even know what can prepare somebody that's going to be sucking. Like, on it. So anybody have any suggestions for her? She wants to prepare for breastfeeding while she's pregnant and ensure good milk production.
I can respond to that.
Yes.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? So I have my daughter's almost 2. She's my only one. She's still breastfed. I didn't start feeding her. We didn't start feeding her solids until after she was a 4-year-old. So she was strictly being breastfed until she was 1. And she'll be 2 in October. So prior to her actually transitioning to this plane, what our focus was on relaxation and my state of mind. So what we focused on was we did breast massages, we did warm compresses on my breast. We did a lot of intentional breathing because your mental state will 100% impact your breast milk supply. So for the new mom, there's no feeling like breastfeeding. So there's not really anything necessarily that can prepare you to actually be sustaining a human on your breast. The feelings is going to be, I guess, for lack of better words, I can say weird initially. But one thing, a couple of things that she can do is she can make sure, like multiple of you stated before, she can make sure she's fully hydrated. She can make sure she's taking her vitamins. She needs to make sure she's eating the right foods. I know me personally, I ate a lot of salmon. I tried to get a lot of iron and a lot of vitamin D, a lot of vitamin A, just very specific vitamins that would aid in my breast milk production. So yes, you can massage the breast. I personally have never heard of actually pulling or tugging on your nipples, but they're hot compress, breast massages, meditation as stated before, deep intentional breathings. If you pray, prayer. It's just for a new mom who wants to breastfeed. I believe, based on my experience, like I said, I only have 1 daughter, but based on that experience, is very important that your state of mind is as close to as prepared as you can be. So it was communicated that, walking is really good when you're breastfeeding. Walking is also really good when you're trying to up your breast supply, because as communicated before, is going to up your blood circulation, which is going to continue to push the fluids through your body, which will aid in the production of your breast milk. So compresses, light exercises, intentional breathing and meditation or prayer and or all of the above, and exercise. It's very important.
Okay, and have you heard of the surgery on the tongue of the baby due to poor lactation? If so, do you feel it's a necessary procedure? I had this done to my son, and later when out of that stressful environment, I never even questioned their judgment. You live and you learn. I actually had the same situation that happened. I had, I guess, mastitis. Like I was pumping blood, and my nipples were scabbing. It was really really horrible. And I kept talking to people, pediatricians, everybody. They said my child had a tongue tie. So, but they couldn't really give me a definite answer. I ended up getting his frenulum clipped. It did not help. It still was painful. And I had dealt with guilt for that for years because of the way that it was done. Someone told me I should have went to a dentist. I got all the advice, of course, after it was over. It was really horrible. They say that if the tongue doesn't go past the gum line, that they could possibly be tongue tied. But after I did my research, I read that after a year, their tongue is even going to grow. So anybody want to speak on that? And her next comment, oh, she said thank you on Instagram. Can you elaborate on the importance of latching when baby latches good at first and then it becomes difficult? Why is that the case? Also, how many Oz. I don't know. Should a new mom be pump? Oh, ounces. Ounces. Should a new mom be pumping daily? And before that, I don't agree with pumping so early. I think it's good to wait to after you have established your milk flow, because sometimes that can actually cause some latching issues when you are giving the bottle and the breast, and then also with your milk supply, because when you pump, your body is it's giving you more milk. So does anybody have anything to say about that? Any of those two things, topics? Latching, tongue tie?
Ask those two again, on the latching. Ask the latching question again.
Can you elaborate on the importance of latching? When baby latches good at first and then it becomes difficult, why is that the case? Also, how many ounces should a new mom be pumping daily?
Okay, so I can speak on the first one. So I know the baby is going to feel what the mother feels. So if you're in the process of nursing your baby, any tensions, any inhibitions, any discomfort, the baby will 100% feel that. I wouldn't even nurse my daughter if I was angry. I felt like my milk was polluted, just simply because that's not a feeling that I wanted her to uh, be engulfed in this early. So if your baby is not latching, you can try to put some breast milk on your actual nipple. It will make the baby taste it. I know this might sound kind of weird, but when my daughter, she went, it was very minimum. It was like maybe a half a day where she was just didn't want to latch. I actually squirted my breast milk into her mouth, because she was solely on breast milk, and I was not, I didn't want to give her formula. So I don't know if your baby's not latching, you can actually put your breast milk on the baby, put your breast milk on your nipple, and then let the baby actually taste the flavor of your breast milk. And that actually has had a positive effect. For me, I spoke with one of my best friends about that. She tried it, it worked for her, and a couple of other of my the women in my circle that worked for them as well. So the where are you when you're nursing your baby? If you're upset, if you're frustrated, if you're any kind of emotion that could keep you from producing more milk, your baby's going to feel it. So try when you're latching not to put so much pressure on yourself. It's very important to give yourself infinite grace, because breastfeeding it can be easy, but it also takes a very, very big strain on our own mentality and our mental space and our mental health. So if your baby's not latching, try those two. Try to make sure you're in a good space prior to you nursing your baby, and then also try to put breast milk on your nipple to allow the baby to taste the flavor.
And she says, yes, same. I had guilt as well. The tongue tie, yes, I heard it. Fixes on its own later. I also feel sometimes the abuse to medicate and try to milk with a lot if unnecessary procedures. Yeah. The reason why I did it is because it was two people in my family who had it. So I was like, and they were older when they got the surgery. So I was like, yeah, it maybe it's true, but yeah, I regret it. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to make a comment on the latching and just really echo what the young lady just said about the emotions. I know from my own personal experiences, taking long, deep breaths, depending on how I was feeling before I was like literally like right before I was getting ready to breastfeed. Also, maybe removing myself from a room that may have been overstimulated to go breastfeed the baby. That would help. And this could be really at any stage. It definitely was when they were newborns, but I noticed sometimes that we may need to do that as they are changing and growing. That may be a time that, we may need to revert back to some of the things that worked when they were younger. And taking those deep breaths would just really help me calm down. It would help my heartbeat kind of settle down, help, because those are the things that baby feels when they come in, like whether you reach for them or whether you go pick them up or if you're already baby wearing them. Those are the things that they feel if you've kind of gotten yourself excited or if you have responded to something else, in the room, in the house, in the day, wherever you are. So taking maybe 5 to 6, maybe 10 deep breaths, letting somebody else have baby for a second. Maybe you guys do a reset. Maybe you guys do some skin to skin, and all of that will, I know, help me during my latching. And what was the other question that she had?
Have you heard, she was just talking about the tongue tie surgery.
Okay. No, I haven't had any direct experience with the tongue tie, but I think what you shared was very helpful. So that's really all I had on that.
Okay, anyone else has any more questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question. So, what if you're feeding your baby is having wet diapers and mid diapers, but the baby is not gaining enough weight?
Gaining enough weight according to who and what's, because after your baby is born, they're going to lose some weight.
Yeah, so I do know that the baby's going to lose some weight once the baby is born, but for some reason, one of my clients was like, okay, she went to the pediatrician and they said that the baby wasn't gaining enough weight. Now I know that they do like look at formula fed babies and go by, about gaining weight. But when I had saw a picture of the baby, she did look, kind of slim, like very. I can start seeing her bones a little bit.
Is the
So from
mom,
there, her pediatrician told her that she needed to go to like the hospital so they can monitor her breastfeeding and seeing like if she needed to get formula. I had
so
suggested that she increased her nutrition and drink more water, but I'm not sure if she went that route.
I think
I'm
that,
sorry, you broke up.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think this is the situation, maybe someone can elaborate who knows maybe more about what's going on with the baby Amin Ra with Sister Saisha. I think that's the issue. Are the parents small, like in stature?
Yes, they're the dad is pretty slim and the mom is slim too.
And so it could, to me, it could be that, because I know that I thought that that was gonna be an issue, but it wasn't an issue. I would say that, I guess, I don't know, I think that's some kind of on a judgment, but if there is a nutrient deficient, they would need to supplement or increase calories. Look at the diet that she's eating. How old is the baby?
The baby's around 1 month now.
Yeah. Yeah, and consulting a lactation consultant would really be the best situation, and really more than one. Because if you're not getting the answer that you need from one person, you can consult more than one person. But just my thinking from my knowledge, I just think that the mom should increase her calorie intake. And sometimes they just don't go, are they vegan or they have a
No, they're not
restriction?
vegan.
Yeah, I don't know, because everybody has different genetic makeups, everybody is a different size, but if they feel like you don't go, even with the BMI chart, there's people who are above that and they consider that overweight and they're not unhealthy. So I'm not sure, anybody have anything to say about that?
I second what you said. I would just let the mother know to increase the intake and maybe water intake as well, and maybe try to do some exercises to improve circulation.
Okay, thank you.
I will also encourage mom and family that when they're going to their healthcare practitioners, that they go with an advocate so somebody else can be in the room, and it's not just maybe mom and them or mom and dad and them, and it's somebody else like a third party to kind of help advocate for them as breastfeeding or holistic style parents, if possible.
I'm going to piggyback off of what you just said about having an advocate. It's important to know that uh, the medical, I guess I could say the medical system here in the States, it's not set up for us. And in the States, there are a lot of scare tactics that are used. So just tell your client to be cognizant of that. Take everything else that everybody said into consideration, DNA, just the makeup, the milk supply, the exercise, everything that you guys said, but also tell your client just to simply be aware, to take that advocate, like you just said. Yes, ma'am, take the advocate, but also be aware that these doctors aren't really set up for us. So be cognizant of what doctor you're going to, and also be cognizant of the fact that, like what was already stated, every single baby situation, DNA, everything is different. So just tell your client just to be aware that there are indeed scare tactics that are used in our medical systems over here in the States. And that's something that's regularly used. And childbirth is not even treated as a normal thing, as a normal occurrence. It's treated as an emergency. So those first couple of months when you have that baby, and also when you're going to these doctors prior to having that baby, just be cognizant that you're going to come across a lot of scare tactics.
So did she take the baby to the hospital?
Yes, she did take the baby to the hospitals for to monitor her breastfeeding. So she did tell me that they're still pumping and breastfeeding the baby and also doing formula. But the formula that they chose was like a vegan formula. So they're just doing both of them. And she's gaining weight now, but I'm not sure if she just went straight back to breastfeeding now.
I would like to offer
I
some,
want to
oh,
interject here really quickly. Sorry, she can probably increase her feeding. I know we say, oh, we should feed every 2 to 3 hours, but just feed the baby whenever baby's hungry and be consistent. You don't have to wait 3 to 4 hours to feed the baby. That could also help with, the weight gain as far as breastfeeding goes.
and I'd also like to add to that, documentation is very important, especially when you're dealing with the industrial medical complex in the United States of America, because they tend to look at data. So if you can encourage her to keep a journal of when she feeds the baby, just for her own records, and then also what she's eating and intaking herself from a nutritional value, so that when she does go in, if they're questioning her about what she's eating or what she's doing for the baby's well-being, she can show them through documentation what she's using and the herbs that she's taking. Because again, dealing with this medical corporation, they're very much focused on getting as many children on formula as they can because it makes money for them. So documentation is very important.
Okay.
And there's a
One
comment in
that,
the chat.
okay, go ahead.
How often is she feeding? Also, maybe taking a feeding diary for like a week to determine the baby's feeding pattern and incorporating some healthy fats into her diet, like avocados. Also, maybe using herbs to increase the supply. Just suggestions.
That's good. So good stuff. I was just gonna add, is the baby, do you know if she's on a passy or not? You taking a
Um,
pacifier?
I I think she is using a pacifier. I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so one thing she could do is also, in addition to what everybody else has shared, is that try and reduce or eliminate that pacifier and have the passy time done at the breast,
Mm.
Because one of the things that could potentially happen with pacifiers is that when babies are doing the sucking is telling their brain that they're actually full, but their stomach is not. Because really that suckling should be done at the breast, because the pacifier is just really, man's way of creating this amputated nipple, but that passy time should really be at the breast. So if that can either be decreased or eliminated, I think that would help with, what everybody else has said as well.
Okay.
That would be like chewing gum, like you're tricking your body to think that you're actually eating.
Mhm.
Is she like breastfeeding on demand? Like, is she working or something?
No,
So why is she pumping?
just to get a more milk supply.
I think breastfeeding solely, like exclusive, like breast to mouth in the beginning is the best thing to regulate your own supply, because my personal opinion is that, pumping is for emergencies, like when you have to be away from your baby, but it interrupts the natural supply, because when you're feeding the baby, your baby is getting exactly what it needs. So I would suggest eliminating the pump unless she has to be separated from the
I
baby.
would echo that. That may be a big cause right there, because you said 1 month old, so she's either 4 or 5 weeks, and that's really not the recommended time for her body to establish supply and demand for baby. Again, unless they got to be separated for some, work, school, emergency type of situation. But if they don't have to be separated, babies should just be able to come right to the breast.
I would also like to encourage, I remember when I was breastfeeding my last baby, I was 39 and I had issues with milk supply. I kept the baby in the bed with myself and my husband, and you make sure that the baby's safe and you have the baby next to you so that when the baby gets hungry or cries in the night, you can feed that way. And I know a lot of times when I was struggling with low milk supply, just having the baby, my son, next to my breast and having him able to get it when he was hungry, that helped a lot too, because a lot of times the anxiety and the fear of not making enough milk can put you in a trickle down effect where you don't make enough. So maybe if you can encourage her to have a place where she can have the baby safely next to her in the bed, where she can feed the baby in that manner, and that might be helpful.
And she should be like drinking like a gallon of, a doctor told me you still should be drinking like a gallon of water a day and still eating like you're pregnant. So like still eating a lot. Another comment, does she has a forceful letdown that could discourage the baby from feeding as well, and try switching the position of self to regulate flow? A
So
comment.
yeah, her letdown is good. It's just, I guess.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so her letdown is good. She is getting like a regular amount. I mean, from my opinion, a good amount. It's just the baby wasn't gaining weight. So I guess that like frightened her about, okay, my baby's not gaining weight. So, you know,
Yeah, it could take time, because I know my child was small in the beginning, and then because it wasn't that much coming in until about like 6 weeks, and I would get pressure telling me, "Oh, this baby too skinny. You need to put him on formula." But I was like, "I'm not doing no formula," and I just kept breastfeeding, and eventually it works. And my little theory from breastfeeding is I feel like consistency eliminates all problems. To me, like I've had some challenges breastfeeding, but I never gave up. I never went and got formula, and I just kept on. And eventually, the problems that I had, they just went away. So I feel like consistency is key. I know stopping is not going to help. I mean, not to say that that's what she wanted, but that's just my opinion. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Oh, the comment in the Ask G on Instagram says this has been so informative. Any other comments or questions?
I'll just echo what Sis said about safe co-sleeping. After our first child, we really embraced safe co-sleeping, and it really worked well for just having that anxiety being taken away of having to get up, go in the other room. And studies show that when you safely co-sleep, it does increase mom's oxytocin, which in turn helps her produce more milk. So just wanted to say that I know sometimes that medical industrial complex can really scare families when it comes to that. But again, there's a website, I think it's called like 7 Safe Co-Sleeping or something like that. And it just gives you the tips. And as long as you follow those guidelines, it really promotes more healthy milk production and bonding between mom and baby, in addition to the fact that baby has been with mom for about 10 months. And so the biorhythm and biosync that is happening also helps to aid in a co-sleeping type of fashion, as as mammals. And our bodies create the sea around our babies, or you won't roll over them. Again, if you haven't had any recreational or prescription drugs, if you don't have like heavy blankets, these are like a couple of the things that are on the list, but you guys can just look up that list. But just wanted to echo that, because sometimes people are just kind of scared or afraid, they're kind of tabooed out of being next to their baby when it's really natural and all mammals do it. So just wanted to share that.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
I had one last comment. I remember when I had my baby, the one thing that I wish people had encouraged me to do was create a very special sacred space where I could go to breastfeed my child, like create a room. I know we always plan the bassinet and the birthing pool, but thinking about a place to have for the mother and the child, something beautiful, something that makes them feel good, so that when she does go to breastfeed, she's in an environment of peace, whether that's candles or crystals or music that allow her to be in the mindset to breastfeed. Because if you're stressed out like I was, because I was an older mother at 39, you have this anxiety, and anxiety and stress creates a cycle where you get into that fight or flight. And when your body is experiencing those emotions, you can't secrete the oxytocin and serotonin to have enough milk for the baby. So just creating something special, make it a beautiful room, and let people know that if you're breastfeeding the baby in that sacred space, if they can't come in with support and encouragement, then perhaps they can come at a different time. And I just wanted to share that.
I also think that's important when it comes to weaning too. Like, so if you are weaning, you can just eliminate that, that space that you have created. So I think that's a good idea. I personally feel like in order for us to normalize breastfeeding, because I was like the only one to breastfeed for like seriously extended or whatever. I think maybe I had some cousins who maybe did it a few weeks or so, but it was kind of seen as very odd in my family. But I would make sure that I didn't leave. If we were at the kitchen or wherever we were talking, having a discussion, and my baby wanted to feed, I just did it right there. This is different from what you're saying. I do agree with what you're saying, but I wanted to make sure that the younger teens and girls and people in general in my family saw that breastfeeding is normal. So I made sure that I breastfed around my family. And of course, people still was like, oh, you need to go here and you need to go there. But I didn't want it. I just wanted it to be more normal so that I can pass on that tradition to where like my nieces are like, I'm going to breastfeed. Like you already know that's something that you're going to do. So as far as like normalizing breastfeeding, I think that we should not make it so much of a secret thing, but definitely not taking away from what you're saying. Freedom, excellent idea on the sacred, oh yeah, somebody, Ariane, excellent idea on the sacred breastfeeding space. I agree, thank you. She said, thank you.
Yeah, to add on to that, I had I asked, well, question, do you feel that if you're not like pregnant or if you're not breastfeeding, you can't teach or educate, someone about breastfeeding?
No, I don't feel that way because that's like doulas who haven't had children. You know, it's like you can still do your job. You can still help aunties who don't have children, but they babysit other children. They still can have good advice. So I'm big on normalizing it. That's why I continue to do something every year to bring on the focus on breastfeeding because we have to keep it at the forefront. Aside from just all of the physical benefits, I mean, I believe that scientists really haven't even uncovered all the benefits of it because you are transferring the DNA from your grandmother, great-grandmother's, great-grandmother's, great-grandmother. You know, that's what's being transferred.
I'll shade
to-
to that. Yes.
Yes, to your babies. And that knowledge, you can't, there's nothing that could beat that. And it's something that's coming directly from you. I forgot my other point. I'm looking at too much. Y'all can go ahead. It'll come back to me.
Okay, and
While you
also,
thinking of your, oh, go
like
ahead.
even
Go ahead.
within my family, I don't see anyone like any of my cousins breastfeeding, and I even like my grandmother didn't even talk about breastfeeding. So I was like, when I see women breastfeed, I get excited, like, oh my goodness, yes, you're breastfeeding, because I never see it like within my family. So yes.
I was just gonna say, sis, when you brought that up about that connection to our ancestors, for those that if you know or don't know, you can look this video up on YouTube. It's Mama Marimba Ani. She has a video called "To Be an African Woman," and she talks about the ancestral downloads of our mothers that we get when we have it when we're pregnant during the labor process, but how breastfeeding extends that downloading of that ancestral conversation. And every time baby comes to the breast, it's like a way to connect with your ancestors. So you guys can just look it up. It's like a lecture she did, but I mean, it is really powerful. It's called "To Be an African Woman."
Yes, the cultural benefit. And that would be the blame on the IQ when they say, oh, they're so smart. It's that extended DNA, even with the delayed cord clamping, with the more of the transferring of the blood, how they say that your baby gets to get more, it positively affects their neurological system, their brain function. So yeah, that's important. Anyone else have a comment or question?
I was just going to share, I think that this is such a beautiful forum that you created, Adina. Thank you so much for making sure that women, Black women especially, have access to this type of information, because I know growing up, I did not have the support. Having 4 children and I breastfed all of my babies, I didn't have the support. And some of the things that I heard echo tonight, just the lack of support, the lack of encouragement. I'm so happy as a woman now, almost 48, to see younger women have this in place now. It gives me hope because I have daughters and I want to be a supportive mother to them. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for creating this opportunity for women, Black women, to pass down this information and knowledge, because a lot of times it's stigmatized in our community because it was taken away from us during slavery and how we had to feed other people's children. So we're reclaiming something that's naturally our birthright and our gift from our ancestors and creators. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on and for everybody coming on to speak, because I just wanted to, I know that so many people have so many, so much to share, even if it's just your experience, or just anything that you've learned. Because I've learned, like I said, every year I learn more. So I've even learned more with just this discussion. What is the name of that video again by Marimba? I need somebody's asking.
Oh, it is To Be an African Woman. Just, yeah, you're gonna get like different versions of it. I think it's about like 43 minutes, 48 minutes, something like that.
To be an
Um,
African woman.
yep. I want to
Okay.
say she has a book by that same title, but that lecture really, like, she really drives it the point home, and she really, yeah, they'll be touched by it.
Okay, and there's another comment in the chat. Thank you, ladies. The support is much needed. Definitely stigmatized. I know that I have been threatened. I'm saying this for myself. I've been threatened to put out of places for breastfeeding, and I was telling, I have a client, and I was like, it's people are gonna be kind of okay with you breastfeeding when your baby, is small and pampers, but when your baby start walking and having teeth, and it seems to me like I would be like on guard, like, it can seem like a fight with strangers and family, and it was always coming from women telling me that I should go into the bathroom and breastfeed my child. So that's why, another reason why, not only because it's so beneficial, it's because, like I said, I want to normalize it. um Original Womb, do you have the number that you have featured on your slideshow? I don't know what number. Do you have the number? Freedom is
Oh,
asking.
oh, yes, I do. It is 832-598-4880.
I want to make sure I heard that correctly. 832-598-4880.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the chat as well.
And I do want to thank where we usually have our events every year. Well, for the last few years, it's been at the Recipe Oak Cliff. It's a juice bar restaurant in Dallas, Texas. The owner is Peter Creer. And I actually told her this year I wasn't going to have the event because I was a little discouraged. COVID is just like discouraging me from having live events anyway, because we need to have another doula expo. But last year when we did have the event, we did have people come out, but it wasn't pregnant women and it wasn't lactating women. So I said that I wanted to not do anything. So she's the one who encouraged me to make sure I did something online and to make sure that people can listen to this over and over again. So this is going to be uploaded on my YouTube channel, The Craftswoman. So if anyone wants to look at it later, because other people will see this and get encouraged. A comment, Omega Rich on Instagram, blessed, glad I tuned in, very important conversation. Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Because people are really going to be helped by this, because it's so many people who feel, oh, I do want to say that even if you've had breast surgeries, you can possibly still breastfeed, because I know people who have had breast implants and reductions, and even breast cancer, who have still been able to breastfeed. And I was also taught if you were HIV positive, you could still breastfeed. This is what an elder.
Same here.
Right.
Sis, I have a close friend. She had breast implants, and she's been able to breastfeed with no problem. And then my mom used to work she's a nurse, and she used to work at a HIV family clinic, and those moms, would be breastfeeding. So yeah.
So that'll probably go for this new thing that's been going around too. I don't even want to mention that because it could possibly get my video taken down. But this common thing that's going around now, which moms are being separated from their babies, if something like that comes up. So if it works for that, maybe it'll work for
Yeah,
this.
I think it depends on maybe where mom is, because I know of some families and they were encouraged, thankfully it sounds like they have some good healthcare practitioners to continue to breastfeed, and mom and baby were still doing fine. And then again, I do know some other families who have had to advocate for that, but they still were able to do it. So I think really nothing has changed, because even though we see things now, we can go back to the 1930s or 20, just it's always going to be something. And a lot of our practices and ways of life, again, that were already normalized before we were stolen and brought over, those things will continue to maintain us regardless of what's going on. So I think that's how I'll say that if we continue to do that, and take all of these great ideas that everybody has been sharing to enhance our breastfeeding lives and our breastfeeding journeys and those people around us, then it's going to propel us through all of this.
Yes, and it also helps to decrease infant mortality, maternal mortality. It's going to help to decrease postpartum depression and so many other things. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just think that it's really the best thing and the only thing. And if you are not able to breastfeed, I think that we should consider seriously milk sharing, because there are some moms who have an oversupply of milk in their freezers and no one to give it to. So if we could just make it more, of an option, that we should milk share. I think before we go to the donor milk, at least it's somebody that you actually know.
Does anybody know of a milk sharing group here in Houston?
But in your doula groups, in your doula community, you can just express that if you come across a mom who has a low milk supply or who's unable to breastfeed, just ask maybe the doulas if they have any clients that have an oversupply. Because I hooked up a mom who was like, she had been breastfeeding for 2 years and she was like begging, trying to find somebody to give that milk away to. She had like freezer full of breast milk. Someone put their phone number in the chat. And you can also search on Facebook for breastfeeding groups. They are very resourceful.
Something I'd like to share as far as the breastfeeding education piece is just making sure, just like women go to Lamaze classes to prepare for birth, if we can encourage women to start looking at breastfeeding while the baby is still in utero, to give them that freedom and that space where they're educating themselves during the pregnancy, so that once the baby is born, some of that anxiety and that fear is removed, because just like they've been preparing for the birth of their child, they've also been preparing to breastfeed as well. And so from an educational perspective, teaching young women and their parents and support group to help them through that process, because that takes away some of the stigma and it increases the opportunity for them to continue breastfeeding if they've already previously had that support, as opposed to waiting for them to have the baby. They're dealing with postpartum depression and the anxiety of breastfeeding. So just encouraging birth workers and doulas and midwives to make sure that as much as they educate about pregnancy, as the baby is being loved in the womb, to encourage the mother how to prepare for that process as well.
And we can create our own milk sharing groups. Like you can create your own. If you're finding that you have a lot of clients that have low milk supply, you can start matching up people the way I had, because when I had my office, I had a refrigerator there. So that was a way for me to keep the milk in the refrigerator, somebody drop it off, and then somebody come and pick it up. So, we can definitely take that initiative and start our own milk sharing group and wet nursing.
That's what I was gonna absolutely, that's what I was gonna say. Really, to both of those, I could speak to real quickly. I have milk shared, I want to say like 4 or 5 times, and just different cases. Twice with babies that were in the NICU, but they were coming out, and then I think they only give you so much when you're in the NICU, but once you leave, that's pretty much it. And then another time was with the mom just of that adopted baby or what have you. And so at that point, that there was like we kind of created a like a local group where we were to help that mom get milk to continue to provide breast milk for her baby. So yeah, just us taking that initiative, like you said, to create our own groups, we really definitely can be empowered to do that. And as far as getting that breastfeeding education beforehand, I definitely support that. I do breastfeeding classes virtually, and I have a lot of people in my class. They're either pregnant or some of them have not even had their babies yet. And I thought about this, sis, when you said you had your event and you didn't get many pregnant or lactating moms. I remember this maybe like when I first wrote the book, there was a couple, they wasn't even married yet. They was just kind of like out on date day or whatever, came to this event where we were vending, bought the book, and like a year and a half later, they're like, we're married, we're having a baby, so you never know who your information is going to be for or whenever they're going to use it. So I think that education is definitely critical.
Yeah, that's extremely right. I'm
What
sure
what you
somebody,
said real quickly, can y'all hear me?
go ahead.
Real quick, we gotta just as a come on. Just as a community, we gotta get past the stop it. As a community, we gotta get past the embarrassment. So I don't know, it with a lot of different people is different. So you have the feeling of shame and the feeling of embarrassment. Everything that comes with childbirth, from breastfeeding, from the beauty to the ugly, is natural. So that may be a thing that some women are feeling, the sense of potential shame, embarrassment, because they're not able to produce or give their baby what they feel they should be naturally inclined to be able to give. So as a community, for women who are unable to produce what they feel their baby needs, it's a community. It goes back to the initial saying that it does in fact take a village. I've shared as well. I was blessed to my whole family called me a cow, okay, because it's a lot of milk over here. So it was okay for me, and it made me feel good to be able to help other families, other mothers, other babies. So if there are women who are unable to produce what they feel they should be able to produce, it does take a village, and you have a lot of sisters who are healthy, who are well, who are open to aiding you in providing what you feel you are unable to provide for your baby. So we gotta get past that feeling of embarrassment and that feeling of shame and the harshness that we give and deliver to ourselves.
So like just communicate and say, hey, do you know anybody who has an oversupply of milk? Because it's women who will throw the milk away. And I'm like, even you can drink it. I mean, don't throw it away. People are paying their mortgages off of breast milk. I mean, this is some people's job that because these people who have these breast milk banks it's a big business. It's a big industry. And that's how important the liquid gold is, the divine liquid is. So just keep on asking around. Do you know anybody who has extra supply of milk? And you'll be surprised if somebody who has it just filled up in their freezer. Anyone else have anything to say? You all can just openly, we can have just a discussion for the last few minutes. We'll be on here.
This is Jessica with the Original Womb. I just wanted to say thank you all so much. Thank you so much for putting this together. I am really honored to be a part of the panel. And I just want to say from my experience, like I felt, because I was so different from a lot of the people around me and I didn't really have support, I really feel like I was in a bubble. And so I'm really glad to see something like this is currently available. I'm really happy that you put this together
Yeah,
because it is needed.
thank y'all for just participating, because I couldn't have been here alone just talking to myself. But I really wanted to be more I just wanted to invite like everybody. This is it's what it's all about. I'm sure that's what the founders have in mind of us doing stuff like this, to help us to breastfeed more, because it's so beneficial. From it even helps with obesity, diabetes. I mean, the way your jaw is created, your eyesight, your skin, your immunity, your lifelong immunity. I mean, the benefits are endless. Breastfeeding, the benefits are endless. The bonding, I believe it helps to help the baby to develop their own security too. And also with I'm gonna say, I know someone who, how in our community we're quick to give, older people are quick to give babies table food. And what it does when you give them table food or anything outside of breast milk, it has like a lot of sugar in it and it's unnatural and it messes up your digestive system. So there's a woman who is morbid obese and she blames it on being force fed, being fed so early, like table food so early. So, and I mean, she has weight problems, and a lot of people, you can kind of cut that out most likely if you breastfeed your baby. Are there any foods off limits while breastfeeding? I'm not a big, I feel like there, just like, your body has a filter when you're pregnant, the placenta, your breast does have a filter. So the baby is going to get the best, and um, the mom is going to suffer. So that's how you have like the dental problems and your hair falling out, and your baby's just walking around chunky and fine because you didn't supplement, you didn't eat enough for yourself. So I don't think I have any foods. Of course, no liquor, but I don't. Does anybody have any foods off limits while breastfeeding? Any recommendations?
I'll share a little bit from my experience as it relates to foods. The thing that made certain foods off limits for me was eczema and food
Oh,
allergies
yeah.
that came up about maybe 6 months with the first one. And because some of the tests to get more accurate allergy tests, they have to take a blood test and all of this, we elected, well, my pediatrician was like, she was the first one to say, hey, mom, what are you eating? A lot of other dermatologists and pediatricians, they wanted to give us all these creams and topical solutions that really exacerbated the problem. And so when we said, hey, we're not putting no more of this on, it's not working, this stuff is making it worse. We eliminated all of that, got a different pediatrician. And then the first thing she said was, mom, what are you eating? She had me keep a food journal until baby was old enough to get an accurate test, which was really about 8 months. And so in that particular case, what ended up happening is that I had to, because I wanted to keep breastfeeding, I chose to take those allergen foods out of my diet. But in that case, it was, for the allergies and the relief, and really her skin cleared up. That's when we really embrace co-sleeping, because when you have a child that might have scratch because she has allergies or something like that, you don't want her away from you anyway. And then not only was the breastfeeding nourishment, it was also comfort for that. So that's why we elected to continue to breastfeed, and we worked through it. But for the most part, you know, really you want to, you know, if you can focus on, you know, high nutritional, high calorie dense foods, that's great. But if a mom said, hey, I'm going to eat, you know, this junk food right here, but I'm going to still breastfeed, I'm going to be like, okay, go ahead. You know, it's not going to be the best option, but I would take that over her saying, no, I'm not going to breastfeed. So, you know, that's kind of my take on that.
I agree. And with the eczema, I forgot that gluten and wheat, that can really cause that eczema, the wheat and that gluten.
Yeah, that had to leave out my diet. I haven't had it in 14 years because I just never introduced it back.
Does someone else have something to say before we get out of here?
Have any of the moms in here ever like created their own natural breast formula?
Well, I think we talked about this in class. I used coconut water when I was having when I had to be separated. I couldn't pump enough, and when I was like pumping blood, when I had my issue with the scabbing and stuff. So me personally, I have used coconut water.
And for us in our household, we have used hemp milk before, but we've never used it exclusively. We just normally put a cut on the milk with it. And so just really hemp seeds and water. And it's worked well. I mean, like there was a time when I didn't work inside the house. I worked out and my husband stayed home with the little one. So that's kind of when we explored that with our first child.
I used this is Jessica with the Original Womb. I used almond milk and coconut milk, and that seemed to really just help as in place of breast milk when you're unable to have it instead of the breast milk. Sorry.
This is something that you made yourself?
I used to make it myself, and I did use a commercial one too.
And what age was your baby?
After one,
Okay.
one. Yeah, after one.
Yeah, there's rice
Same for
powder.
me. My little one was one at the time as well.
Yeah, mine was not. It was like less than 6 months. It was a temporary thing.
I've used coconut milk and oat milk, and then my baby, I drink a lot of ginger tea, so she's in my cup a lot. So what I've actually started doing is I slice up ginger and use honey as a preserve. So when I want her to just, if she, sometimes you want to give the baby something a little sweet so they can just go mind their business. So what I do is I take that that ginger and that honey and I blend that up with some oat milk and coconut milk, and she goes to work on it.
All right, any last minute comments before we log off here? Thank you, everybody, for participating again.
I wanted to say thank you, sis, and thank you to everybody who shared. I've been taking notes as well. So just thankful for this platform and you getting us all together and everybody who's been sharing. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming on and being on time and everything. Like everybody showed up, everything was good. So we'll have the finished video up and I am going to end it here. So thank you all. We'll see you next year, hopefully in person. And we have everybody's information if you want to put it in the chat.